Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I know I've been missing in action without any without any warning, no reason. So sometimes I just do that, and I've just done that. So here I am, I'm back. I've been very busy. I've been launching a new business, which is doing very well. So if you're interested in that, let me know. You can send me a DM and I'll let you know what my new endeavour is. But I'm keeping that kind of on the down low, to be honest. Anyhow, I want to talk to you a little bit about the ego. I want to talk to you about the pain body that you may have heard Eckhart Tolle talking about. Or you may have heard like the id, the ego, the superego. These are terminologies that were coined by Freud. And these are kind of Freud's dynamics. They are his ideologies about human being, about how the human works, what comes together. And we're just going to have a little bit of a deep dive into it today. Hopefully you'll understand it a little bit better by the time we get to the end of today's video, if you're watching on YouTube, or podcast if you're with me on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else where you listen to this stuff. So let's have a little think. What is the id? What is the ego? What is the superego? Okay, and as I said, you may have heard these terms kind of the id is what I would say Eckhart Tolle claims is the pain body. So I'm mentioning Eckhart Tolle because a lot of people will have heard his work. And I'm actually reading New Earth at the moment, which is a very, very good book if you haven't read it already. But we're going to have a little talk about what these things are and how they relate. So what is the id? Now, if you've been following me for a while, the id is what I would call the caveman in your mind. The id is that very primitive and instinctive component of your own personality. It's the part of you that follows those very deep primitive urges, such as to eat food, to fornicate, to fight, and that fear that often comes in as well. I mean, I've got quite a good video on this actually on YouTube called How the Matrix Traps You or something along that lines, which explores how your own kind of id, your own primitive psychology is used against you to sell you stuff from the Matrix. The Matrix. And when I say the Matrix, guys, what I'm talking about is social society constructs, social ideologies, things that you haven't thought about or created in your life that have become intrinsically part of you and yourself, whether you like it or not. So those are those constructs that you've been born into. So the id is this very primitive part of yourself. It's responsible for your aggression, it's responsible for your libido, it's responsible for your biological drives, such as things to do with your sex, and traits to do with biological markers, and also things to do with wanting to have connections with other human beings, your sociability, the fear of being thrown out of the tribe or the clan. All of those things start with the id. Okay. Now the other part of yourself is called the ego, and the ego is the thing that gets developed to bring together the id, this unconscious part of yourself, and then the other parts of your mind. And so you find that these parts are often in conflict with each other. So the ego is there to mediate between the unrealistic id, because it's a caveman, it doesn't understand all the approaches and premises of what it means to be a human being in this present world, in this modern day matrix that we live within. And it's also related to decision making and things to do with the personality. So the parts of the unconscious mind, this is the id and the superego, they're in constant conflict, with the conscious mind, which is the ego. And this causes a lot of conflict, anxiety, fear, and worry. And the superego, this is that unconscious stuff that gets handed down by society. Okay, so this is values and morals and things that your parents have put into you. These are those unconscious patternings that resonate within you that you kind of don't even recognize are going on. So we have this very primitive part of our brain, the id, the caveman in your mind, that is very, very instinctual, very fearful, wants to fornicate, wants to eat, wants to do all the things that will keep its primitive self alive. And then we also have this ego, okay? And the ego is this conscious part of your mind that's trying to be part of the field of reality that we all live within. And then we have the super ego, which is those unconscious programs from the matrix, from society, from values, morals that have been dictated to us from our traditions and our history, depending on where we live. Now, that's just a rough guide so far. Hopefully you're with me so far. Now, the difficulty between the id and the ego and the superego is that they tend to be in constant conflict with each other. So, for instance, the superego may have a value that you would want to have a relationship, okay? That you want to have a relationship, that relationships are really important. Then you may also have the id that wants to fornicate and go out and spread one's seed in whatever way, shape or form you would like to do that in, male or female. And then we also have the ego that wants to protect itself from pain and rejection and, looking like a silly person asking somebody out and being rejected or them saying no. And you can see how all those three things can come in constant conflict with each other. And this is a very, very problematic way to live, particularly when people are not conscious of their id, the caveman in their mind, of their super ego, those unconscious programs that we're running, that we've been given by society, and of the ego, the one who identifies itself as an individual and wants to protect itself at all costs. Can you see how those three things not only work in conflict, but how not being conscious of those things could lead you in a bit of a tailspin, where you're wanting to move in one direction, but then there's a part of yourself telling yourself that danger lies that way, and then another part of yourself is telling you, go do this, but actually there may be rejection, there may be fear, there may be pain. We have a lot of conflict, and unfortunately, in most relationships, in most humans, most people are not even aware that they have these parts of themselves, let alone that these parts of themselves are actually acting, just sort of like running these programs. It's like software programs running in the background, and you're trying to do something on your computer and everything's running really slow, and you're like, why isn't this working? It's not working because you've got all of these Trojan horses, all of these software programs running in the background that are literally conflicting with each other. And a lot of people that I speak to that are attempting to remedy their lives, to become better people, to do things, to find relationships, go after jobs, go move house, whatever it is, move country, do all of these big things that they want to do. Often what they find is that they are stuck in analysis paralysis or procrastination. And often the reason why they're stuck in procrastination or analysis paralysis is because they are not aware that they have these three parts of themselves that are conflicting with each other. So for instance, somebody may want to stay single, okay? But we have this super ego self, these constructs of society telling you that, it's only spinsters and horrible people that stay single for life, that there must be something wrong with you if you're single. And so you have this part of yourself that's unconsciously pushing you towards dating. Conversely, on the other side, the id is terrified of being on its own, because through caveman and primordial premise, to be on one's own as a human being represents danger, because there's safety in the tribe, there's safety in the clan. So you have this id part of yourself, the caveman in your mind, who's also screaming, single is danger, single's danger, we need people. And then we're stuck between these two senses of selves with what we actually may want to do from the ego, from protection, not protection as myself, just from desire of who we want to be, and not even recognizing what's going on. And so we may be unconsciously driven to seek out relationships. And this is where we find people stepping into unconscious relationships with people that they often don't even like because of a sense of need rather than a sense of want. Because they're not conscious that they have all of these other programs running in the background. And when you deal with people who are unconscious, I mean, some of the worst people I've ever had to deal with are people who are not conscious. And I say that with love. And I'm not saying that from an egoic point of view of like, I'm so conscious, so, you know, like, no, we're not all conscious all the time. But if you can hit consciousness 50% of the time, be aware of your unconscious patternings, be aware of what's happening, right? Be aware when you're triggered and when the id steps in to protect you, when the super ego starts to run, when your ego gets involved in some way, shape or form and starts fucking your life up because of whatever's going on. You can become conscious of these patterns and you can stop them taking over. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, okay? It's not an easy thing to do. And it isn't something that you can do consistently either. But I'd say if you're hitting it 50% of the time, where you're recognizing that you have a trigger or an unconscious pattern that's coming up, where your super ego or your id is getting involved, or your pain body, whatever you want to call it, is getting involved, and you can call it out in that moment, and then you can put in conscious and healthy coping mechanisms. Those healthy coping mechanisms save a world of pain. I've watched people in relationships where it's just the id is arguing with the id. Yeah. Oh, I feel you're doing this. I feel you're doing that. I feel this. I feel this. I feel that. You know, and it becomes a fight of wills, where nobody wins, because actually nobody's even talking about the actual problem that's going on. They've just become triggered, and then they become defensive, and then they become angry, and then it's like, who can shout louder? And the problem is, if you're not conscious of your relationship patterns, you're not conscious of your triggers, you're not conscious of your caveman who wants to come out and protect you of these primordial shit that's not going to fucking happen most of the time, or some of this other stuff that is, you know, egoic bullshit that society's given you, that actually you don't even care about that stuff. How can you have a relationship with somebody? And unfortunately, conscious people draw in conscious people, unconscious people draw in unconscious people. And when you have two unconscious people, you just have a battle of ids and egos. And it's painful to watch. So I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to the id, the superego, to the ego, to some of those unconscious programs that you may be running in your life. If you'd like to leave a comment below, I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear from you guys all the time. If you want to send me an email, you can send an email at lawofattraction@gmail.com. Okay, and that's LAU. And if you're interested in having conscious relationships, I'm running a course at the moment called Conscious, and it's all about how to have a conscious relationship. And that's not just with other people, but it's also with yourself. And it's really deep shadow work. It's really alchemizing for some of the trauma. So even if you've sworn off partners, if you've sworn off humans in general, if you think, do you know what, everybody's far too complicated and too complex for me to even have a relationship. If you've had traumatic relationships in the past, if you've had a traumatic childhood and you just think, fuck, I don't want to date my father, I don't want to date my mother, so I'm just not doing it. Whatever it is, I can help you. Okay, and this course, Conscious, actually probably will help you a great deal. So if you're interested in that, again, leave a comment below, send me an email, all the links are down below, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. My name is Laura, and I am an empowerment and ascension coach, and I love you very much. Bye.